Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm joined as always by Superfang99. This is the finale of the Innsmouth Conspiracy Into the
Whoa!
Maelstrom. Yay!
Yeah.
All right, so exciting. We had a whole campaign. We had a bunch of times that we could spend experience and a few that we couldn't. We are able to spend experience before this one, so I hope your deck is prepared for the finale. So let's take a look at our setup and all the things that are going to make this a little bit interesting, depending on what we have done so far in the campaign.
We're going into the Maelstrom. We're going deep underwater to confront Dagon and Hydra, by the way. She's also here.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta stop them from waking up. And we only got one shot of this. All right. And Agent Harper's here, just in case as well. Alrighty, so a lot of setup things. First thing is that we have to check some memories, or not memories actually, check just campaign log stuff. So we check first if the investigators possess the key to Yanath Lay, which required the red key to be obtained in A Light in the Fog.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is true, then they okay, this is so annoying because you need the red key from that one, but in this one you get the blue key because of it. Anyway, someone gets to get the blue key, otherwise you set it aside. Same thing for possessing a map of Yanath Lay, you get the red key, otherwise set it aside. Next, if the Guardian of Yanath is dispatched, this was from the interlude in the previous scenario, you have to have the Terror of Devil Reef dead, and you have to have Life Cycle of a Deep One as a memory recovered. Someone gets the green key, otherwise it's set aside. Finally, if the Gateway of Yanath recognizes you as its rightful keeper, which again required you to defeat the Gatekeeper last scenario, as well as someone has to take control of the Waveborn Idol, Awakened Mantle, or Headdress of Yanath. I know a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Someone gets a yellow key. All right. At this point, some number of keys are in control of investigators, and some are set aside. If you have fewer than 4 set aside, you get the purple, white, and black keys. You shuffle them, and then you add them to the set aside pile until you get 4 keys set aside. So, if you have none of these things in your campaign log, all 4 will be set aside, and therefore you will do nothing. However, if you have all of these things in your campaign log, you will just get 3 keys set aside, the purple, white, and black keys, because there's not enough to get 4.
That's right.
And then
So,
you remove the other keys.
so in other words, there's for story reasons that we'll see in a second. You need to have access to the blue, red, green, and yellow keys,
Yep.
and as additional things that might be helpful, the other 3 may be available to you.
All right. Then we get some locations put out. We get the Gateway of Yanath Lay, as well as a bunch of tidal tunnels. We're back in the
Yay!
tidal tunnels.
They're back.
Notably, the Gateway enters partially flooded, even while it's unrevealed.
Which means nothing, I don't think.
Correct, I think. All right. Also, let's see. Hey, each investigator who possesses a diving suit begins with a diving suit story asset. That is every investigator who went through the moon or resigned at the moon room in the Light in the Fog.
Yep.
Shall we read the diving suit?
Yeah, I love these things. Reminds me of
Yeah.
the Return to Circle Undone, where you get the what are they, the Night Gaunts, right?
Yeah. The something. Yeah, something. All right. You ignore the forced ability on the current agenda, and whenever. Well, actually, let's read that first. What's the forced ability on the current agenda?
Okay, this one again.
Yeah, it's the classic. You take 5 damage unless you go to unflooded or partially flooded. Okay. Also, when any amount of damage will be placed on you, place 1 of that damage on diving suit. And when it leaves play, you remove it from the game. So, importantly, it says when it will be placed on you, which I believe means that if you have other soak, that can soak damage instead of having to put it on the diving suit, correct?
Yeah, so if you were to take direct damage, then it goes on the diving suit instead.
Yep.
Otherwise, you put it on your soak and it doesn't matter. So yeah, it takes up a body slot, which is fine. Not having to have the mental load of remembering this for a while is kind of nice.
That is true.
You know who can fix this?
Who?
Lonnie Ritter.
Oh, that's right. And she gets paid for it.
Yeah, she's really good at fixing these giant metal suits. Anyway, this is cool. I like that it has a cost as well, as if you could like add it to your deck or something.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that is our setup. We're going to start at the Gateway of Yanath Lay. Our objective is to get the blue, red, yellow, and green key, those 4 keys that we talked about at the beginning, if each investigator is at the gateway and everyone there possesses the blue, red, and yellow key, you may choose to advance. So this is very important. In the original printing of this campaign, it just says, I believe, advance, right?
And then people
Uh,
did because they had them at the beginning of the scenario, and you're like, well, I guess we move on. But it's kind of important that you don't.
Because getting those additional ones, if you can, they're good. You should get them.
Yep. So your job in this first act is to collect as many keys as you can, and notably, you have to get those 4. You might already start with some of them, but maybe because we got the tidal tunnels again, maybe there's more keys here.
Indeed. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do the thing that we always do. Let's start here. Hey,
Oh,
no,
look, it's that one.
there's nothing here. All right, let's keep going.
Hey, it's a key.
Okay.
Let's see what it is.
Is this one?
It's the white key.
It's not partially flooded though, right?
No, it's not. You're right.
Okay, cool.
Oh, it's the useless one because it has victory and it's the final scenario.
Yeah, and too many clues there. You don't even need them. Like, there's no point in, well, that's not totally true, but there's really no reason to get clues on the ones
Yes.
that don't have keys.
I should mention also, because I forgot to say it, but in this one, see, this one is different, right? This one isn't connected where it's like spokes. This one's connected where it's adjacent ones.
That's right.
Just in case you didn't realize that.
It's like, yeah, the first scenario in that way. Yep.
Exactly.
And all of the other ones, really. It's just the last one that didn't do it. Oh, a new location.
Hey,
oh, okay.
It's a new one. Yay. All right. So after it's revealed, we put a random set aside face down key. All right. And place it on the Dark Abyss. Well, look at blah. Forest. After the last clue is discovered from Dark Abyss, it becomes fully flooded and you increase the flood level of each location connected to Dark Abyss.
So
that sucks.
When it's on the corners, that's like pretty okay. When it's here, it's going to fully flood the middle location. But you know what?
Correct.
You have your diving suit, so who cares?
You do have a diving suit, so who cares? It's the purple key.
I do want to say this is a 2-shroud location in a finale. I find that like kind of ludicrous, but
I mean, this beginning part of this scenario is so weird anyway.
It
like,
is.
Just get to the finale for the love of God.
Oh, the other one.
All right. Here's another one. Hey, look, it's the black key. And then we're going to discover it, and then it's going to go like that.
So there's no more locations that can have keys because we decided all of these were already done by investigators. But you know that the last location is going to be another tidal pool. So, okay, that's the scenario.
That's the scenario. We did it. We won.
Yeah, no, we got to go to the gateway at the Play, and which we never flipped over.
Oh,
hey, there's nothing here.
There's nothing here. That's why we never flipped it
over. Right. I don't think you're even going to get to the agenda flip quite.
I mean, it could be that you have none of these available, so you have to get all 4 keys, but yeah.
Even if you do, I don't know, even if you don't have all 4 of them and you have 3 of them, right? Getting all 4 keys at this point in the scenario in the campaign should not be that hard. Like, we've seen literally these locations before, and these are actually easier than them because they don't increase their shroud when they have any sort of flood tokens on them. So I don't know, like, just give us all the keys. Don't even make us do this part.
All right.
Now,
shall we advance?
Act 2.
Okay. I'm going to be very careful with this, but we're going to very quickly and very gently move these everywhere. All right. Act 2. Here we go. Ta-da. We're going to do some setup. So let us look into the campaign guide just to show visually what is going to happen.
Yes.
Okay. It's a big page. So, effectively, we're going to put out some locations, and then, depending on the number of investigators, we will remove some locations and slide some locations together so that they will actually be connected. So,
that's right.
4 investigators, we're going to basically just put every location out as it is in the diagram, and we're done. And 3, 2, and 1, we're going to remove a location each time effectively, and we're going to kind of slide things so that they're symmetric and connected and stuff like that. So in our example, we're going to do 2 players, I think, right?
Did you want to show 4 first?
We can show 4. So here's 4.
There's so many locations.
There's so many freaking locations. So when a lot of people on in the discourse online talk about how the scenario is like too easy as a finale, and for a lot of reasons I agree. I disagree if you're playing in 4 players. Because look at this freaking map. In order to, like, everything is a choke point. There are no locations that are connected to more than 2 locations, except for the very bottom here. And at this point, you're also surrounded by 2 giant things, Dagon and Hydra on either side.
Yeah.
So you're extremely fucked.
This long corridor here is very tricky to manage because you're trying to get to these other locations over here. But just, remember this in your mind, and we're going to show you what the 2-player one looks like.
So, in 2-player, we're going to do this manually as well. We're going to remove these 2 locations, because that's A and B. And then we're going to slide these to the right and to the left. Correct?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So, you'll notice with this one, we have a grid here. And that is very, very handy for everything going on.
Absolutely. Okay, this is cleaned up a bit. So, yeah, this is a little bit more manageable than that 4-player one that you saw. For 1 player, it is even easier looking. So, well, the difference is that you remove, I think it's this one.
Yeah, it's this one. And what that means is that this one is actually over here.
And these
this
are
one's
up
over here.
Yep.
And then, yeah, these like move up.
So it's just this box here with one gateway of play up there. So, but still, this isn't so bad. There's a lot of locations, but they have multiple ways to just lose the enemies and have them move towards you, but not actually attack you.
Yeah.
All right.
So that is most of what's here, but we must also put Hydra and Dagon into their lairs. Where's Hydra? There she is. Is that over here? No, it's over here. And here's Dagon. And hey, look, if Dagon has awakened, then he enters play with the awakened and enraged side face up, which makes sense. Otherwise, he's asleep.
Right. Let's have him be awake, maybe.
Sure. So he's awakened and enraged. 7 fight, no health, 4 evade. Ancient 1 elite. Hunter, massive, retaliate. He gets -1 fight for each Sanctum location with a key on it. Okay. And after he's evaded or dealt damage, do the same to a copy of Dagon's Brood in play as well.
Neat.
And over here, we have Mother Hydra, deep in slumber. She's slumbering, cannot be attacked, blah, 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 and immune to everything, basically. At the end of the round, if an investigator is in the lair of Hydra and Hydra is ready, you place a doom on her.
Now, this has been errated to at the end of the investigator phase.
Oh, that's right, because she could technically be exhausted.
Yeah, otherwise this makes no sense. At the end of the round,
she'll always be ready.
Right.
Yeah. As an action, test 4 willpower. If you succeed, either exhaust Hydra or remove a doom from her. If you fail by 3 or more, place a doom on her. And I believe Dagon's asleep side is exactly the same. Yeah. So they're waking up.
Yeah. So really what this means when they're sleeping and here is they're kind of guarding their lair.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to go here until they wake up, and you can. There's a way to get rid of the doom or whatever, but don't.
Don't do that. Alrighty. So we have Act 2A version 1, which is the version that we started with. And there's a free triggered ability to either remove 1 per damage from an Ancient 1, or to have investigators at a lair location spend 1 per clues as a group. If you do either of those things, you decrease the flood level of any non-Sanctum location in play.
There's no limit to this.
Correct. Decrease, importantly. Fully flooded goes to partially flooded, goes to unflooded. That is important. Your objective is to stop the Deep One's ritual by draining the city. Every location has to be unflooded. And that's it.
And there's a lot of locations here. However,
there are a lot of
Sanctum ones that you're not allowed to use that ability on are these 4. And they are randomly placed there, and they've got some special abilities on them. So let's just, kind of run through it as we would check out the different locations, trying to see which Sanctums we have. Notably, if you have a 2-player game here, the keys that you're holding on to are, these 4, but you don't probably have all of them yourself. You probably split them up. Okay.
It is the Sunken Halls, 2 shroud, 1 precludes. As an action, if you control the black key, you can put it here. And after an enemy enters Sunken Halls, if there is the black key here, you deal 2 damage to the enemy. It's like a trap.
Yeah. There's no limit on this either. Anyone can go through and get hit.
Yeah.
Including these guys.
Yeah.
It's pretty good if you managed to have the black key, and that again was the map, right? No.
Yeah.
No. The black
Yes.
key
We
is
know.
one of the ones that were you had to get from the first part of the scenario. Yeah.
Uh.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yes.
You had to pull it off of one of those title pools because these are the
Yes. That's
four
right.
that you
Because
get.
these
Okay.
ones are optional.
These are
Quote
the
unquote.
optional ones. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you okay, so if you don't have these four at the beginning, there's a chance that you don't get the black, purple, or white because that spot, one of the four keys that could be on locations, is taken up by these guys.
The ones you need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. If you do have it, that's really good. Try to
It
get
is good.
enemies to enter here.
Let's go to the right. Hey, it's the Vault of Riches. It's an action. If you control the purple key, you can put it here. Then choose a non-elite enemy at any location, automatically evade that enemy, and move it to the Vault of Riches. And it also stuns it. It won't ready during the next upkeep. Group limit once per game. So, sure. If you really need to evade an enemy, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Are they getting lost in the treasure or something?
I don't know.
Okay. Definitely not as good as 2 damage every time they enter the location.
Indeed.
Okay. Let's check out what's in the corner.
Yeah. It is the Syzygy Chamber. 4 shroud, 1 precludes. Action. If you control the red key. Hey, that's the one that we actually need. Place it on this location, and investigators here spend 1 precludes as a group. Automatically evade each Ancient One enemy. Unflood this location. For the remainder of the game, this location cannot be flooded. After any location's flood value is increased, each investigator at the location takes a horror. I'll be honest, I always forget to do that.
Yeah,
It's
just
hard to
don't
keep track of.
don't stick around here is basically the idea if you can. But this ability to automatically evade each ancient one is interesting too because you only get one shot at that. Now, actually, you're going to see you've got 4 shots at that, but you kind of want to wait to use these abilities when the ancient ones have reason to be evaded, right? So if someone's over here, right, you don't want Hydra to be ready, you can use this ability then, and then they can do whatever they want in the lair. Or you wait until they are awakened and are chasing you around the map.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, coming down here, we have another Sanctum. It is the Statues in the Deep. Action, blue key, 1 precludes. Automatically evade. If you fail skill test while investigating this location, you take a damage. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the part of the challenge here, at least in multiplayer, is do you have the right location with the right person, with those clues, or sorry, with the keys and the clues, and then they can do it. It's a very nice flex oriented scenario because you do want to move around as much as possible and have the clues to spend. In solo, you just have everything. It's very easy.
It's really easy, yeah.
Okay.
Next, we got the Undersea Corridors, 6 shard, 0 clues. You can put the white key here as an action, and as a free trigger, you can move to a kinetic location if the white key is here. I love this one. This one's awesome.
Mm-hmm. You put down a shortcut level 2.
This is actually a great place to put, this is a great place to have this
Right in the middle.
well.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's check out down here now.
Sure. It's another copy of Sunken Halls.
Cool. Now, we have now seen the 3 different locations. The other ones that we see that are like this, I guess it's just one more, is a copy of one of those. So it is another white key.
Yep.
You only have one white key, so probably you're going to put it down the first one you see, but who knows? You might wait around to see what you get. But in this case, at least we got one copy of all 3 and one extra one. It is very possible that you don't get any of one of these because I believe there's 3 copies of maybe the white key one.
I think there's only 2 copies of each, right? Or
I think there's 3 copies of one.
Oh, there are. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Oh, that's right. It has to be more than one.
Mm-hmm. So it's very possible that you actually don't get them, and we'll talk about that
Yes.
later too.
I will mention, remember that you're still putting the key on the location, which means that you could technically pick it back up because if there are no clues there.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. I've done that. I've moved the black key, for example.
Okay, that's cool. Huh.
Yeah.
The white key, I could see also if you put it in a bad place, you could pick it up again on your way out.
True.
Well, no, you can't.
Well, then it's like you're spending an action to move anyway. No, whatever.
Okay, never mind. Yeah. Okay. So then the other locations here at the bottom are going to be our layers. So we've got let's do the Hydra one first.
Sure. So, 6 shroud, 3 precludes. Lair of Hydra gets -1 shroud for each Sanctum location with a key on it. As an action, you can place the black, purple, or white key on this location to deal 3 damage to an Ancient One enemy that is not slumbering. So, only to awake Ancient Ones, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So this one's really important in the design because I just mentioned that you might not actually have a use for the black, purple, or white key because those locations just aren't in the game.
Yep.
This is the way to use that extra key, and right, you get to then deal some damage. 3 is a lot for the Ancient Ones because remember you're removing damage to unplugged locations too. But if you're doing it in solo, it's even better.
Great. That's 3 different locations.
Yeah. You have to be
Pretty
at the
good.
same location as the Ancient One to do it, but yeah, you could just, end the game that way. But that's not the only reason you might want to add damage to them.
That's right.
Okay. Before we do this one, let's look at the other 2 sanctums.
Sure. We got the Onyx Guardians. This one has different text, actually.
Mm-hmm.
During the enemy phase, each ready Ancient One enemy can attack investigators here as if they were engaged.
Don't stay here.
Don't stay here. And the action, yellow key, 1 precludes. Evade.
Unblood, yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Finally, we have the Submerged Temple. Each deep one enemy at this location gets +2 fight. Action, green key, 1 precludes, automatically evade. So they all do the same thing, except that they have some minor modifiers for you to not want to be there.
Yeah. Which is tougher here in 2-player where they, it is like the location where you have to then come back out. I think it's worse on those higher player counts where you have many more choke points. So harder to
and
stay
also
there.
because these ones are basically good, like safe havens because they can't be flooded after you do the thing.
That's right.
So it's a little push-pull there for you to stay there or not want to stay there kind of thing.
Note, though, that these don't start flooded.
That's true.
All right.
They can get flooded, I believe.
They can, yes. We can advance the agenda now.
Let's do that. Yeah, I actually don't even remember what happens. Okay, that's right. This one, we actually just get 2 enemies that were set aside into the encounter deck. The Loigor and the Aquatic Abomination.
Fun enemies here. Just
Fun enemies,
add into the
indeed.
pile. Okay.
Yeah.
8 Doom.
8 Doom? Okay.
Shockingly, we have 14 so far, and doesn't feel like there's much that we've been doing. Why don't we advance this agenda too?
All right. Hey, it's Tyrants of the Deep. So if Hydra's in play, you flip her. And if Dagon's in play and Slumbering, you flip her. Flip him. So everyone's awake now.
Yeah, and moving around. The thing is that's a long time to wait, especially if you decided to advance right at the beginning of the game.
Indeed.
But
this last agenda, I don't actually understand this first line of text. That seems impossible somehow, but maybe not.
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. So this is somehow if you get to the 3rd agenda without getting to the 2nd act yet. You're still in the 1st act. And then when you get to the 2nd act, it tells them to put them into play slumbering, and it never told you to flip them. So this thing is telling you to flip them.
Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. All right.
Game design, baby.
Oh, someone figured out that, and yet they didn't figure out other things. Okay. Our last location is the Lair of Dagon.
Yeah.
The name of the other scenario we just played.
This one's going to be very similar to the other ones, right?
Mm-mm.
Not at all. 6 shroud, 3 precludes. Gets -1 shroud for each sanctum location with a key on it. Oh, we got that. Free trigger. Check campaign log. If all 7 keys are on locations and the order's ritual was disrupted, you dig deep into your memories to recall what happened the last time you were here, and you read Flashback 14.
Okay. The Order's ritual was disrupted, was doing well in getting the first resolution in Lair of Dagon, right?
Seems right.
I assume so. That makes sense.
Let's quickly look back. That sounds right. Blah blah blah. Oh, it's not there. Wait, unless it's on the back of the act. Oh no. I don't actually know.
Uh-oh. Okay, we found it. We found it.
We found it. It's on the back of the act, not in R1.
Okay, good. Okay. All right.
Anyway, so yes, succeed on Lair of Dagon. We can do this.
Now, importantly, if all 7 keys are on locations, that means that you needed to have collected not just the 4 keys from the first part, right? But an additional 3 keys. So
correct.
That means that you needed to do all four things and get, or just three. You need to do
At least three,
at least
correct?
three, and then you get four more keys. So
Yeah,
advancing that first act is not something you want to do until you've collected all of the seven keys available to you.
correct.
And then you place them all down, and you've done that thing from scenario 7. Then you can do this.
Shall we do it?
Yeah.
All right. It's Flashback 14. Eleanor Harper reveals. Wait, actually, no, this is a flashback. So
Mhm.
this is Thomas Dawson telling us like what their deal is. I think.
Yeah, so they're both actually in cahoots and they're trying to complete a mission about like stealing a bunch of treasure, right?
Yeah, something like that. So you can either decide to help Agent Harper, and you get Act 2 of the new act. I should say, it's actually in addition to the current act. It's
Hmm.
not replacing it, which is interesting. Or you can defy Agent Harper. You have to remove Agent Eleanor Harper from your from someone's deck if someone has her, and you get version 3 in addition to version 1 into play. Gives you an alternate slash additional win condition.
Yes. So
Stinging betrayal.
one more memory, which allows you to do something kind of cool to make this last scenario a little bit more difficult.
Indeed.
So we
All
got a
right.
choice. Of course, you don't know what these are when you decide to help or to defy, which is a
Correct.
big problem. Big problem in the design. Oops. But let's take a look and you'll see what I'm talking about.
So, version 2, you've agreed to help Agent Harbor complete her mission to bring back the vast wealth of Yanath Lay. So, if the Lair of Dagon, the Lair of Hydra, and this is probably what this is for, the Vaults of Riches, with the purple key have no clues on it. Wait, what? Oh, the Vaults of Riches with the purple key. That's the noun.
Hmm.
If they all have no clues, you advance. You just got to get all the clues on.
Yeah. What if you don't have the Vault of Riches in play?
Uh, oops. Oh, you have to place all 7 keys, so you wouldn't be able to do that regardless,
Yeah,
right?
you can. You can put it on here.
Oh, you're right. Is it possible for you to not have Vault of Riches in solo for sure?
Yep.
Right. Well, then you're screwed.
Go pick the other one.
All right. Otherwise, if you do pick the other one, you refuse to be a pawn in the government schemes. Dagon and Hydra each have to have at least 4 per damage on them. That's a lot of damage.
Well, at least so we haven't talked about this. You can attack them. Remember, this is why they have -1 fight for each sanctum location with a key on it. Even though they don't have health, you can attack. You also can, have them walk through one of these turrets.
Correct. And at this point, because you have all 4 keys on the things, they'll have 3 fight. So not so bad.
Hmm. That's right. All the while, you are also trying to unflood locations. So maybe if you are unflooding locations and you have that other act in play, you don't want to use the ability to remove damage from them. Although if that's
Correct.
what's really easy for you to do, then I guess you can.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. What do you want to do now?
well, if we have put these into play and gotten all of the flooded locations out, we can advance this one. Let's do that.
Sure. So we had this at the victory display, and we are able to escape. But if there is another act card in play, you either can choose to just stop now, or you can try and fulfill its objective. If you do so, you just put this card in the victory display and then continue on. Otherwise, if there are no other act cards, we go to R1.
Hmm.
You get 2 extra victory, I guess.
Yay. So you
Yay.
have to make a choice, right? To continue playing. If you're going to do another one, there's no other way to resign if you can't complete that objective. So
Yeah,
choose wisely.
choose wisely indeed.
Usually
All
not a hard
right.
choice, honestly. But
Which one do you want to go for?
well, we can do the. So this one, which one do you think is harder?
Well, well, it depends. I actually think that V3 might be harder.
Hmm.
Because it means that you need to have the classic damage dealer and evader for both enemies at the same time in order to do this kind of thing.
That's right.
Whereas this one you could kind of just have someone kind of have them chase someone across and just leave the seekers to just get a bajillion clues off.
That's right. I kind of agree. except for if you're playing solo.
Fair enough. That is true.
It's very
4
easy
damage, I
to do
guess.
either of them.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
4 damage. They just run through the turret twice.
That is true.
Okay. Plus, there was the thing that dealt 3 damage potentially to one of them already, so you don't
That's
have
right.
much more to go. Let's take a look at that one, just for fun.
All right, so the deep ones start thrashing about, and the ceiling collapses. Blah blah blah. So the riches will be preserved, and same thing R1. Or if, for example, if you did this one first, then you could do this again and then go to R1 finally.
That's right. All right. And then there's the other
Otherwise,
one.
V2, it's the same thing. You're gonna take the riches out of here, and then they tell them to blow the place apart, and then blah blah blah. R1 or not.
Mm-hmm. All right. If you've not watched my playthrough and you want to, just stop for a second and come back in like a minute or whatever.
I haven't seen the episode yet, but
I
tell me
know.
what happened.
I just have to say, if you're okay, if you're not planning on watching or you don't care, I'll just gotta tell the story. Okay, if you've forgotten about the fact that you need to advance when the criteria is met on this,
Yeah.
this is a must.
Oh.
You're in for a little bit of a problem.
Oh no.
All right. In solo, I've been talking about how easy it is. I drained the city basically in, I don't know, 2 turns. It's very easy. You just spend a couple of clues and then they're all
Yep.
gone. I put the keys on this location, this one, and I didn't put it on this one or whatever was in the corner here because I realized that if I did that, that's putting the last key,
Yeah.
and that would immediately advance the scenario. That would not give me a window to move here and do the trigger to check the campaign log.
Okay.
So, what would you do in that case?
Well, I mean, the thing that you're waiting for is for everything to be unflooded, right?
Yeah, so I accidentally unflooded everything
So
except
you need
for
to
this
like
location.
wait for an encounter card to flood something and
Correct.
then
I had to spend, I don't know, like 4 or 5 turns running around the map
God.
waiting for something to flood a location.
Oh no. Oh no.
I get why this says advance, maybe it should may advance, I don't know, but like it's unusual, I suppose, in higher player counts. It's easier to have all these locations in play, but imagine that there's a few fewer locations than you're seeing on the map here, and all you need to do is go and spend your 1 clue to unflood this location to
The
get
scenario,
the 7th
so
key.
go ahead and just win, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could have just ended it, but I wanted to try to do the last part. Now,
Yep.
hilariously, at that point, I already had 4+ damage on these
Oh my
guys,
God.
just from them walking back and forth through the turrets. So it immediately ended after that. Anyway, I just had to go back and spend the key. But it was just a strange. It's a strange scenario, man. I like the idea, and playing it is sort of fun, but there's so much help that this scenario gives you.
That is true, and I think we'll talk about it when it comes to fairness. I think, but
Mhm.
like every location in this scenario is like, we're gonna help you out just to make sure that you guys can do the thing. The only bad things going on are the 2 big enemies and the small passive effects that each Sanctum has.
Yep.
Compare this to like the finale of the Forgotten Age, where every single location is like trying to doom you out or kill you, or like remove the Elder Sign from the game, kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to play this one. I don't have a problem with there being some easier scenarios, but it just feels like I missed something,
Yeah.
compared to
That's
other
fair.
ones. One other thing I think that's worth mentioning, which I find incredibly amusing, the Awakened Mantle, which I think is a really nice story asset, allows you to move from a flooded location to another flooded location, gets really useless in this scenario.
As it goes on, yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't take very long for that to happen. As unflood a location, with a Sanctum, then you can't get out of it that quickly. So it's not useless, but it quickly becomes something you could just toss. And I guess maybe we're talking about it already, but one of the things that is strange to me about the scenario is that level of tension goes down.
Yeah.
Yes, the ancient ones wake up. Yes, there's more enemies on the board, but you are making things easier and easier for you by removing the flood tokens, um, and yeah, making these guys easier to fight. Compare that to Haster, who gets higher fight every agenda
Yeah.
flip.
I think also part of it is that the agenda gives way too much doom if you're only doing Act 2 version 1, right?
Mhm.
Like I think the idea is that they gave you so much doom to be able to do two different acts, right? But in this like one use case, that's like there's way too much time that you're
Mhm.
given.
Mhm. I think it's not even. I think it's still too much time for doing both of them. Depends on which one, of course. I think the if your ability to get clues by this point is not, supercharged, right? Then it can take a while, but you need to get what, three per clues again, which you've probably already been picking up some of those clues by now. And this is going to be a shroud of two because you have all the sanctum locations with keys. So I don't know. It's not particularly.
Yeah,
Uh,
and again,
yeah.
I think part of this is the player count thing because I genuinely think in 4 player, like not only are there 3 more locations that are flooded that you need to get rid of, but the distance between the sanctums as well as the distance between the sanctums to the layers
Mm-hmm.
is really high, um, and therefore like so much of your time is just trying to get where you're trying to go, um, while being like running into the giant enemies because you can't avoid them
That's right.
in that map layout.
Yeah, that's exactly it. In this one and in solo in particular too, the enemies are just easy to get away from, and they will very rarely catch up to you. So
Yeah.
you're right. The map itself is drastically different. So all of these things have to be taken with a grain of salt because the map is different at 4 player. Yeah. Okay. Um. So we talked about advancing the agenda. Just what kills you?
I think you just lose, right?
Yeah. You
R8.
R8.
Oh my god.
Oh.
How many resolutions are there?
Well, I guess each of those different acts.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, so blah blah blah. If everyone dies, R8, or I guess yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, R1 is if you win, I think. So if you invest you escaped Yana Clay, you could add Dagon Hydra, blah blah blah, 2 physical trauma. And you check if Act 2B is in the victor's play. You go to R2 if that is, or you go to R3. Uh
So you
right?
win even if you don't do the normal resolution. So if you do just
Correct.
one of the side acts, then and you don't shatter the alignment, which is the normal unflood all of the locations, then you still win. That's R1. So Act 2B shattering the alignment is the unflood everything, and
Yep.
you're checking that one.
Correct. So you still win, and if you can otherwise, you can also go to R4 and R5. But yeah, as you said, if you go to R3, the flood has begun, and then you go to a different R6 or R7.
Mm-hmm.
So these ones are technically not winning, right? Because it's like I think they
Question mark?
get there. It's like
Yeah.
the investigators win the campaign question mark because you didn't actually stop them from doing it, but
Right.
you just messed with the FBI, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, um, but otherwise, yeah, you can get some bonus experience, say that Agent Harper's mission is complete or not, and you go to the epilogue. Technically, I think for 6 and 7, you actually don't go to the epilogue, which is interesting.
Okay.
Oh, and that's right. By the way, everyone's dead. Makes sense.
Yep.
And that's because I believe in the epilogue, this one is the thing that checks for memories recovered. So I guess this is like the way you have to do both if you want to get this final flashback. Then here it is. So, you go back home and if you have every single flashback, or I should say all memories recovered, then you're able to go to epilogue 2, and I'm sorry, you're able to get the final flashback, which is the horrible truth, which is the fact that Jonathan Blay is actually everywhere. And I don't know, maybe we'll see it in the next campaign, Drown City. I guess we'll figure that out.
That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Getting all the flashbacks, I think, is really tough. We could talk about the campaign as a whole after we do the encounter cards, but
Yep.
this is a neat little thing to strive for in this campaign. Remember, it's not just about getting positive resolutions, but trying to push yourself as much as you can.
Indeed.
All right, let's check out the encounter deck. A lot of them are actually old.
Correct. All right, here's some new ones. Aquatic Abomination, which only happens during Agenda 2.
Mm-hmm.
5 health, 7... 5 fight, 7 health, 2 evade. Monster Abomination. While it is moving, fully flooded locations are considered to be connected to one another, but it cannot attack during the same phase it moved via its hunter keyword. So it's a big guy, but you can potentially run away.
Mm-hmm. The two agility also not too bad to deal with, but great art, love it.
Cool art.
One of them.
All right,
Just one.
we got Dagon's Brood and Hydra's Brood. They're very similar. Dagon's Brood is a 1/4/3 enemy. It spawns at the lair of Dagon or the gateway of Yonathle, whichever is farther from you. It has Hunter, and when it engages you, as all deep ones do, if Dagon is in play, you either put a Doom on Dagon or Dagon attacks you from over there.
Yeah, this is maybe why the agendas have so much doom, but yeah, I mean, just don't let them engage you. You can, well, this one's a little harder to kill remotely, but
No, yeah, you can't really avoid engaging them, I think.
yeah, I mean, you can have them go back and forth across one of the black key locations, but it's tougher.
Yeah, and again, I actually think that this is part of the reason why 4-player is also really hard, is because you're going to get more chances to get these broods and more chances to put Doom on Dagon and Hydra. Effectively, like more instances of ancient evils than you would before.
Which, by the way, is
also
the,
yeah. Correct. Hydra's Brood is a 3/3/2, and it's the same thing, but with Mother Hydra.
Yeah, this one's easier because it's just 3 health, but yeah.
Yep. All right, so we got Treacherous Depths. It has peril. You must either increase the flood level of your current location.
Yay!
Or, yay, it helps you out. Or you discard assets from your play area with a total resource cost of at least X, where X is your location's shroud value. So it's a little mini corrosion. That's it.
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why the diving suit has cost.
Right. That makes sense.
There's 3 of them.
And we have Conspiracy of the Deep Ones Peril. Revelation test 2 willpower. +1 difficulty for each Sanctum location with a key on it. So this card is actually going to get worse as the game goes on. If you fail, you must either place the Doom on the current agenda, you may cause it to advance, or the nearest Ancient One enemy in play attacks you. Kind of similar to just having these guys engage you, basically. And lastly, we have Thalassophobia. If no investigators are at a flooded location against Surge, otherwise each investigator at a partially flooded takes a horror, and each investigator at a fully flooded location takes 1 direct horror that cannot be prevented. It's fine.
That's pretty soft compared to everything else. So when I look at the cards that are specific to this set, only the Conspiracy Deep Ones is scary.
Yeah, I think that like there are no like absolute haymakers in this encounter set like Circle and Done finale or Forgotten Age finale, I feel.
Most of them, honestly, even the Dream Eaters ones have some ones you're like, oh no, how do I deal with this?
Indeed. Yeah.
This one is this is the worst one, and there's only 2 copies, and if you draw early, it's a 2 test.
Yeah, and it's otherwise it's like, okay, maybe I'll just get a Doom, and that's fine, right?
The rest of the cards were in scenario 1. These 3, these 3 as well. These were showed up a little bit later, and then so did these, but we've seen them before.
I will say title alignment is another way to get it flooded. And that one is basically just like you're losing a round of gameplay. It's basically like drawing, or maybe not, but it's like, it's either 1 per damage or 1 per clues. So
yeah, that's true, but that's not so terrible. I think in this one, there's plenty of clues around, and if you run out of clues, I meant to mention that earlier. That one reason to stick around a little bit more in that first act is you can collect clues and hold on to them.
Yeah, you don't lose the clues.
You don't lose them, so you can bring them in and just immediately start unflooding.
That one is a very non-blind friendly strat for sure.
Yeah. But if you do run out of clues on the map, you can just attack Hydra and Dagon. Not that I recommend that much, but it's a thing you can do. I feel like this is just a pretty soft encounter deck.
I agree. It's not that bad. With maybe one exception being the Aquatic Abomination, but it's this thing basically just becomes like either you kill it now or you have to run away from it the entire time, which like is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. It's not a deep one, so at least if you kill it, you don't have deep one build running after you.
Yeah, and also if you haven't used that one ability from the Teachings of the Order, you can use it on this guy and he's just gone. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. So again, this maybe enemy heavy scenario is a lot worse with 4-player, but you do have to be careful with Deep One Assault with this one because might be playing the game of like I'm just gonna end by turn one away from, or diagonal away from all the enemies, so they just move one and then you can just move again back the way you
Yeah.
came from. This is a bit scarier, but you could bring a ward of protection for this or something else.
Yeah.
There are ways. It's always as it's. I don't think it's any worse here than it was in scenario one, which had a very similar kind of map.
That's true.
Other than I suppose, are they deep ones? It seems like they must be.
They
Deep
are
ones.
not deep
They're
ones.
not.
They're ancient.
They're just
They're
ancient ones. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess that's the encounter deck. It's just not much to say, but
Yeah. You want to quickly look at the scenario reference card?
sure. So remember at the end of the last one, we added one of the cultist tablet or elder thing to the bag. So you could have 3 of one of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Skulls -1, -3 instead if there are 4 or more unflooded Yanflame locations in play. So this, as you were talking about earlier, the skull actually gets back to -1 as you like reach the end of the scenario, which is weird.
No, right?
Oh, unflooded. Oh, okay, I see. That's right. Okay, cultist -3. If you fail, place a doom on the current agenda. So that is annoying. And again, this probably is like why they have a lot of time, but it is doom.
This is a good reason, and the previous scenario too. I remove the cultist as much as I can.
True. Tablet -4. If you fail, you must either increase your flood level or take a damage. Once again, increasing your flood level is, I think, similar to adding a doom because it basically takes away or increases the number of turns you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And taking damage is fine. So
Yep. Yeah, that's totally fine.
finally, the Elder thing -5. If you fail and there's a key on your location, take a horror, whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty soft.
Yeah.
I find
Again,
that
the other things are always just big modifiers and like kind of okay.
Yeah, but some of the other ones in other finales are like a big modifier, and if you fail, place a doom or something,
That's fair.
right? Circle Undone, I believe it's the Elder thing is -4 perhaps or -3 maybe, but then if um your modified skill value is 0, then you get to place a doom on the agenda or something, or on
Right.
as a thought.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it must be -4. Anyway, it's okay. It's not the worst or softest that we've seen, but it's also not going to be something you are concerned about on easy standard. What's it on the other side?
Yeah.
Just
Good question.
higher numbers.
Higher numbers. Yes, correct.
No other difference.
No.
Just one, honestly. One number higher.
Yeah.
Okay. I might try this one on hard sometime.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, I think that's it, really.
Yep. That is it. Yep, we're back with the ratings that we like to give all of our campaign scenarios, and we start with replayability. How different is each playthrough? Now, on one hand, the replayability of this one depends on which memories and things you listed in your campaign log prior to the scenario. Depends on which keys you get at the beginning. Other than that, maybe the player count, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that player count and ultimately the quote unquote replayability comes from trying to do those side objectives.
Mhm.
Given the choice, you have a choice, and therefore, like in order to do everything, you need to do things at least twice, which is nice. I do think that a lot of the objective is very just like get the clues, place the keys down, win, and or deal damage to things. So there's not a lot of replayability there. There is some when it comes to the randomization of locations, like where the black key is placed, where the white key is placed, for example. But other than that, I don't think there's actually too much. There's like a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.
Sounds fine. It does feel like a little bit of a victory lap, and it's not horrible to play this again and feel like, hey, it's a fun scenario to actually go through and play, which we can say more about later. But as far as like, is there more to enjoy? There's not maybe so many extra different things to do, but you might want to see what those other objectives are like if you didn't get them your first time. Because I do find that a lot of players, if they on their first run through this campaign, if they didn't do so well in scenarios 1 and 2, then they probably aren't going to get all of the flashbacks, right? So,
Right.
you might want to go do this again and be there with some scenario knowledge. Fairness. So the RNG here mostly is in the those locations, right?
Yep.
Which ones you have, where they go. Um, that's nothing you can do about those, but I don't think they're so. I mean, maybe they're important. They're helpful more than I think they are
Yeah.
annoying.
And that's the thing that like it doesn't actually like the randomness of locations doesn't actually hurt you. It's just
Mm-mm.
like maybe not as useful as it could be.
Right. Now, the first question here about does the challenge create interesting and meaningful decisions? Now, I think that a map like this with a lot of enemies and things you want to accomplish does make your playthrough itself interesting. That I mean, especially with that four-player map we saw earlier, you have to think about how do I get out of this mess? What's the best thing for me to do? And it isn't just simply a rote I move and place the key down.
Yeah, and I think that talking again about the whole four-player stuff, this one is very interesting because I do think that like the decision space is very different between four-player versus 3, 2, and solo
Hmm.
because of the fact that the locations in 3, 2, and solo have more interconnections and have like more routes out of them. There are a lot of decisions like if you go back to the two-player map, like you have the ability to direct where Hydra and Dagon can go because there's a lot of choices. They can go like up or to the left if they're trying to hunt someone. This is as opposed to the four-player map where there are no decisions because everything is basically choked out of everything else,
Yeah, that's true.
and therefore there's only one direct route ever to get from one place to another. And that actually reduces, I think, the meaningful decision space at least a little bit. Like, yes, there are decisions of like those decisions are more like how do I survive this, as opposed to in lower player counts, it's how do I game this,
Hmm.
um, which is partial to the reason why I think a lot of people find, at least in lower player counts, this scenario to be not a good finale because it's more just like you know trying to figure out like how do I distract them enough and how do I have them just like chase me around the entire time while I accomplish the objective without you know without having the finale like juice of like, oh my god, I'm trying to live right now.
Okay, that's totally fair. So what is the solution, I guess? Like, do you just have to evade the two ancient ones over and over again? Like what's been the strat?
I think that it comes to timing. You can evade them. You can use the sanctums to evade them and try to move through them while you do that. And try to time it so that like they come towards you, you evade them, and everyone tries to like leave at the same time. Or you can do a little bit of a split up where you have them on both sides and then have like evade on one side and evade on the other side like ready to go so that you have like 2 rounds where they're all evaded, for example. um there's techniques there, but it's like different techniques than how you would use in lower player counts.
So I do want to throw this in right now. Recently in the FAQ 2.3, the designers came up with a ultimatum for this particular scenario to make it more challenging. And what they did is they said that each agenda should get -1 Doom threshold.
Okay.
And additionally, the forced effect on Dagon and Hydra should say not only after Dagon is evaded or dealt damage, do the same to a copy of Dagon's Brood in play as well, but also ready Dagon.
Interesting.
So you
Yeah,
can't
that's a
just
lot harder.
evade it and walk away. I don't know
Yeah,
what you're supposed to do there, honestly. Like if you after you evade an enemy, it just readies again. Like
you just gotta tank it, I guess.
you just tank it and walk away because they're massive. Like that seems a little bit crazy to me. Um, but I do get that the Doom threshold also lowering might be a good way, especially in lower player counts, to um, have more appropriate pressure.
Yeah, I agree. So this is hard for me because I would definitely give it like uh actually I don't know. I I genuinely don't know what to put this for fairness because like it has like different levels of unfair in the sense that it's like not interesting when it comes to meaningful decisions on both sides.
Yeah.
So maybe they just like cancel each other out, and it's like a 3. I don't know.
the
Let's just go that for now
the
for me.
coward's way out. No, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know what else to say either. I think like our discussion is more important always than our actual numerical values here.
yeah,
It's just a vehicle for us to talk. So yeah, 3 seems fine. Um, it's to me mostly playing on 2 and 3, and very rarely. I've only played this once on 4 player, and then I just played it once on solo. The pressure part is the strange part. It just feels
yeah.
like you're just kind of swimming through on a vacation. So I don't know. I'll put it at like a 2.5 for that reason. I kind of want to put it a little higher just because I do find that you can make some interesting decisions, but the pace is bizarre.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't have to do the map uh, thing. I don't know. That's
I think it would have been fine if just the 4-player map was the map for everyone. I think it would have been fine.
like I said earlier, the number of clues that you have to spend in solo is reduced by the number of locations as well as the player count, right? So it's like you're double dipping.
Yeah.
Well, so balance, we mostly talk about how are you able to complete the objectives and do what the scenario wants you to do with kind of whoever you might want to pick. A reasonable team, of course, but uh, at this point, we've mentioned that the game is fairly good at this. But is there anything in particular that this scenario really needs you to be able to do? Movement, I think, movement tech,
Move
evading.
good. Yeah, as always. I do think that movement is especially good in this one, as we stated. I honestly think that like everyone can just do everything because I mean this is like a fairly straightforward like get clues and put keys down scenario with a
Like
bunch of
all the other
enemies.
ones in the campaign, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like you know, I I'm just gonna give it a 5 because like I think that a lot of this is like the scenario has gives you so much time that it allows you to do whatever you want.
True. You can really build up.
Yeah.
I do find that the longer you wait, the more likely you'll build their board, the enemy's board, I suppose, will pile up. That could just be the way that I play, where I just do keep away anyway, which works. I
Right.
mean, man, track shoes to
Oh man.
it's nuts. I mean, that they're really flippers, right? But you can move to a location with the white key.
Yeah.
You can trigger track shoes. During the test, you can move with the
Oh
white key.
gosh.
And then you do the test at the new location,
Yeah.
pass and move again.
And then you awaken mantle another location.
Yeah, yeah, if you have that. I mean, you're just on one side of the map or the other. So, um, like to that sense, like it's a bit easier if you have any sort of movement tech, like a lot easier maybe. But it is nice that they give you a few things on the map if you're not able to do it so easily. Um, if you've watched my Stella playthrough, I rarely used weapons. It seems crazy, but solo is kind of a strange beast where you can play
Yeah.
one weapon, fire 2 shots the whole game, and say that was good enough.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, there's not much to say. Let's make it a 5. And now you can see on the screen we've kind of made the syzygy, right? The eclipse. All right. Last thing we'll talk about here is the overall experience, and then of course we will talk about the campaign as a whole. Yeah, this one has the same problem as Lair of Dagon in that the first act is it's just
It
there.
didn't need to be there.
It didn't need to be there. Just
It
it's
really didn't need to
there.
be there. Yeah, like yeah. Basically, I think that I legitimately always forget about the first act as well. Um and I think that the scenario would have been better if it didn't have the first act and expanded the second act.
Hmm.
Um either with more locations or like uh more like things that the agenda would do or like, each act flip was happening because you unflooded a sanctum and when that happens, it makes things worse, right? Like I think that would be cool, but we're in a world where the first act exists.
Hmm.
That being said, I do really like the second act in terms of flavor.
Yes.
Like I like that now we're down in here and we're literally under the ocean. Um, Everything's flooded. There's like weird places that you can put keys to like discover the depths of Yanath Lay and try things out. And I like the fact that, the whole flavor of Dagon and Hydra like sleeping and then waking up
Hmm.
is cool. And it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, these are the ancient ones that you can't defeat them. You're just trying to put damage on them. I don't understand why putting damage on them and removing it removes flood from locations. Um,
Who
that
knows?
literally makes no sense to me. But that's I guess what they're going for. So it's not perfect, but I like the location kind of layout because of it.
Yeah, I like the map too. I mean, I always like the big maps. They seem to do a lot more with them. Let me go back to the first act. I often say with some of the harder scenarios in the campaigns that have to come, it's always nice when they give you a few turns to set up. Just because things can go, really wrong if you're thrown right into the fire. The problem with this one is you don't need it. The
Yeah,
second act is just you're already far away from the two ancient ones who aren't even moving.
yeah,
So it just feels like you're doing chores. The one thing that's interesting about the second act to me is that you're kind of doing the reverse of what you've done all campaign, where you are removing the flood tokens. It feels very appropriate and thematic for a finale, right? Like, but the thing is, it kind of feels like we're action heroes instead of up against the cosmos or some ancient ones that are really on our necks. It
yeah. I
and
agree with that.
that goes back
This
to like
one,
the tension issue, right? Where it just seems like things are getting easier as
yeah.
the scenario goes along.
I think that this campaign, if anything, has felt the most pulpy it has been.
Hmm.
Um, and this final scenario, especially with like the whole like government interference stuff, definitely leans more into that than it has in the past few campaigns. Like, you know, either we're trying to deal with time travel or we're in Carcosa trying to defeat this like giant ancient one, right?
Hmm.
Like it feels very epic. This one I do think lacks that epic feel. And maybe it's because we're just under the ocean and that's like where we are, right?
Right?
We're not like in the vastest of space trying to defeat this all-knowing Azathoth that's like constantly trying to kill us, right? Or like, having these cards in our hand that are like hidden and we can't talk about. This one definitely felt like, it was an extension of everything this campaign was in terms of its mechanics because of like the flooding and the
Hmm.
keys and Hydra and Dagon, but it didn't feel like it escalated the
No,
stakes to where it could be, right?
that's right.
And I think that when eventually Drowned City comes out next year, I hope that has a finale, quote unquote, that really lends itself to the underwaterness of the setting that this one is so famous for. So like, I think that this one maybe didn't do as well as it could, basically.
Yeah. So I said before that I think that's cool that they have the reverse of what you've been doing and kind of use the flood tokens for something else. But at the same time, most finales that are, well, harder, uh, have a twist on what you've done so far in the campaign that make it a little bit more challenging, not easier.
Right.
So having some additional, like, so the hidden cards, right? In Carcosa, they showed up all campaign, but then in the finale, they have an additional interesting thing about them, right? You get the old ones, but then you have something new. You're like, okay. And it's not just that. There's other things too that are a little bit of a gimmick that uh, it plays on the horror theme too. But this one doesn't have it. It feels very generic. It's like more of the same.
Uh, okay. So with all that in mind, I mean, I think it's better than Lair of Dagon, so I'm not gonna give it a 2.5.
No.
Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be a coward and say 3 again.
Ah.
Ah,
Okay. It's a
I mean,
three.
if anything, this is the lowest finale of a campaign that I've ever put for experience. So like
Hmm.
I think that says something.
Okay. Um. So I'm pretty negative on this, but I'm going to give it a three just because I do find it to be fun.
Yeah,
And sometimes when I play the game, I don't mind being an action hero.
yeah,
I can't do it all the time, but I mean, the whole campaign as a whole has this sort of strange tension where the first few scenarios are very tough, and then once you get out of what was it, Double Reef, where you can spend a bunch of XP,
Yeah.
it starts to look very different if you've gotten a lot of XP to that point. But the gating is kind of strange. But to me, this one feels like you're kind of riding it out, and it's a fun way to play your deck as you intended. And there's not a whole lot that the game is going to do to pick you apart.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but I wish we were doing a little bit more. So it doesn't get any higher than 3. I would say like even a 1 or 2 in some campaigns makes there's some like flaw where the experience itself is just feels excruciating to play. This one doesn't feel
Right.
that way,
Yeah. Agreed.
but I know they can do better. Okay, that is it for our discussion of Into the Maelstrom. Let's conclude with a few thoughts about the campaign as a whole. I think we've touched on a few of these things already, so it's not um, not much of a surprise when I mention the first things we did at the beginning of the campaign. We're talking about the keys mechanic, the flood mechanic, the flashbacks, um, and just the overall structure, as well as the title tunnel set. If we want to
Yeah.
hit that up
Yeah. I
again.
mean, I think this campaign, it in concept has a lot going for it. I really like the keys,
Mhm.
and as many people have said, I hope that they either come back or like if it was possible, they could have been in the game from the beginning. Because like they're cool. Like they don't need to be in every scenario, but it's like just having them is cool.
Mhm.
I like the flashbacks, or I should say specifically the memories. I as I said at the beginning, I really enjoy how every single check that they do for the memories is in a way thematic to what's going on, and it branches to say that like if this didn't happen, it doesn't happen in the flashback scenarios.
It's clever. I like that too.
Yeah, I really like that. Um, I also like the idea of flashback scenarios because of the fact that it's a way that you tell stories. Like a lot of very famous and very well done stories have these flashback elements, and when they're done well, they're done really well and can give really interesting context to either character motivations or just what's going on in the plot right now. Um, I think that the way that it was executed in this campaign wasn't good enough. Um, I think that the flashbacks, all they really did was facilitate the memories
Mhm.
in a way that created the interesting moments of you're like, this memory didn't happen, therefore it's not going to happen in the flashback. It really didn't add a lot of context to this campaign because when we go to Vanishing Villain Harper, we're like, this is the scenario. I understand that we're in Innsmouth and this is in the past, but like, does this tell me anything new that I didn't know? Like, obviously, it gives me like, I was just in a cave, in the previous scenario. I'm here. So like, why am I here? Like, how did we get there? And we do get one big thing, which I do think is cool, which is the whole Thomas Dawson reveal of him being the weird creature thing. I forgot his name.
The
Um,
amalgam, yeah.
the amalgam in the pit of despair.
At
I
least
think
he's
that's like
part of
one of
it,
the
right? Like you says, you recognize like a head or something, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the cool things that they did. But I think that a lot of people missed that as well. Like it's not very clear that that is what was happening. Like yes, it's like oh he got kicked into a pit. Okay, that makes sense. That's why we're in the pit of despair. But it happened so late in the campaign where like that was in the beginning. Oh, I guess that's why we're in the pit. I get okay.
Hmm.
And now we're here with Eleanor Harper. Yeah. And then finally, I actually don't think that the story with Eleanor Harper and Thomas Dawson is even that good. Like
the,
they're
the
just here
the
and you're
reveal at the
like,
end is kind of like okay.
yeah, you're just like, all right, we're here with a secret plan to get riches out of the under it's like such a weird motivation. It's like it's not like you're trying to save the world or anything. We're trying to get money for the government.
Yep,
And
yep.
you're like, okay, why? Like so I think like in concept it had some things going for it, but I don't think that the campaign executed it as well as it could.
I'll ask again about the XP situation. So the two parts of well, I guess it's just one thing that they tried to gate with the maybe with the difficulty and with the flashbacks was saying, hey, at a couple of spots, like you can't spend your XP because this represents that you didn't have those cards in your deck or, those abilities. Of course, down the line, you do have them also in a
Yeah.
flashback situation. So it's like, don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, there's only so much they can do.
So I kind of wonder, like, from a gameplay perspective, like the mechanic, if I think about like video games that do this, sometimes they, swap your inventory out or something if it's a flashback section of the game, take away some of your abilities. Like that's this kind of game. You don't want to do that really because you're not playing the game that long,
Yeah.
and removing for a particular like 3 hour session or something what you were hoping to play with feels pretty bad. But I don't know if it was necessary to do it at all to keep you from spending XP.
That's the interesting bit about it as well, is because it feels like is does it like it feels so weird to be that it doesn't feel like it needed to be there. But like to a certain extent I like what they did, but I agree that like they didn't have to do it. Like I don't know. Like it's kind of just weird.
And some people of house rule like, nah, we'll just spend it because you have to keep track of this. It has some weird interactions with anything that upgrades. Um, Embezzled treasure makes no sense if you're you know
The
embezzling.
treasure is coming from Yaneth Lake.
There it is. That's what it's from. Um, so like I love the theme in this game, but sometimes they can't use the theme for justification for
Yeah.
mechanics that don't make a lot of sense for players. So
Yeah, and I think ultimately, there's the sort of like card game ethos where at a certain point, like game mechanics has to trump theme
mhm.
because this is a game and we're not writing a book, right?
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, I think that they committed to do the whole flashback thing, and maybe they needed to just like not do it, basically. Um, that being said, like there are moments where I enjoy the flashback stuff, as I've said before, and really the only detriment is just the not spending XP thing, which
Mhm.
I think for me personally is just not a big deal. But I understand for other people, like that's the whole part of the game. That's the interesting part is spending experience. So
Yeah, but to me, it is that I do like upgrading the deck, but it also feels somewhat arbitrary as to when you're able to do it in terms of like over the 8 scenarios. So you really, if you're going into scenario 4 with the XP that you were able to spend from scenarios 1 and 2 only, that could be not very much, and that part feels strange to me. Like I don't mind them saying you can't spend XP or you don't have very much XP to get, but you might not have done very well in the first couple scenarios, and then you're stuck with that through two fairly difficult scenarios.
yeah, and yeah, I think this is very much like I don't even know what they could have done differently if they needed to
Mm-hmm.
have this like flashback scenario thing. So the question is, do you rework the entire story so that the flashbacks are either in a different order or just no flashbacks at all? That then requires you to not have the memories anymore. So
Yeah,
like,
I don't want
I
to
think
give that
it
up,
like
right? That part's cool.
yeah,
I will say one of my favorite parts really is, you go to a location, it says if you have done X, Y, or Z, you get to read something in the campaign log that is a flashback. That's cool. I like that.
yeah,
So that part is a highlight.
yeah,
Other highlights, I think the flooding mechanic is really good. It's just another way to track something on locations, which is very thematic. They use it very well when the tide rolls in or you start flooding the lighthouse. Like that's all really great. The keys are good. You mentioned that already. I think the deep one archetype is a big success. Ultimately, there's
I
a,
agree.
a lot to like here. It just is a bit uneven, especially towards the end, and they maybe over relied on certain mechanics without iterating on them enough to be interesting.
Yeah, I ultimately think that my opinion of this campaign is that it's a good campaign with two or three really good scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest are kind of just okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I'm with you there. I actually find this to be just, I mean, overall a fun campaign to play. I don't find it as stressful because it is on the easier side. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a couple of stressful scenarios. So I think there's some very high highs, and then the rest of the campaign, I don't think they're like awfully designed scenarios, but they just seem very forgettable. So I don't know. It's good that it's been repackaged. It's the last one. Everyone has a chance to play this one. I mentioned either last time or earlier this time about the idea of playing the flashback scenarios with no XP to
Yeah.
keep that like thematically consistent. That's a suggesting that they have at the end of the new campaign guide. I don't know. Maybe I guess that's kind of interesting. It seems very hard, and it wasn't designed for that. But you know, that's a cool idea. We have all these ultimatums and refractions and everything that allow us to tweak with the scenarios in some interesting ways. Why not the campaign itself too? But yeah, I enjoyed talking about this one with you. I hope that many of you who've watched this as they go up have watched my Stella run to sort of get an idea of what the scenarios look like right before we talk about them on a couple days later. So um, I don't know if we're gonna do that again. Maybe I can get that to work with Edge of the Earth or something in the future. But
Yeah.
it's been good for me to remember what the scenarios are like and get a solo perspective on it too. I apologize if some of my comments are like fresh in my memory was playing this 2 days ago, but that does color as it should for a lot of gaming. I mean, you will remember the last time you played more than anything else, and maybe a different perspective. I used to hate Lair of Dagon, and now I think it's just pretty bad.
It's just okay. Yeah.
It's not as bad as I thought it was before, but it's not my favorite still. Any last thoughts?
No, that's really all I got. And I'm just gonna reiterate that 4-player, this campaign's a lot harder.
Yeah, and I've only played it once 4-player, and it was a lot of fun. And I agree that the enemy load feels a lot different, and you have all those on engage effects that
Yep.
start to chip away at everyone. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you, as always, for being with me and chatting with me for hours and hours of the content.
It is a pleasure as always.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. I don't know when that'll be, but there will be enough next time. See ya.
Bye bye.